Good morning or good afternoon, folks. How are y'all doing today? Welcome to the first of many this season for Countdown to Kickoff. I'm JPeeps, and as you know, we're going to be talking about basically everything FAMU and Howard today. So, keys to victory, players to watch, answering a couple of your questions, of course. A couple facts as far as last season goes from both sides, and also of course score prediction as well. What did Coach Colsey have to say to the media? What did Larry Scott also have to say to the media as well too up in DC this week, leading up to this game, and much more. Also, I think we may have found out who Howard is starting today at quarterback as well. So that's another added plus that we're going to talk about as well. So without further ado, as you know, make sure once again that you are liking, subscribing, and sharing this channel as well too. Make sure you are also, you know, leaving a comment, of course. So, make sure you comment on this as well. Oh boy, trying to find it. Yeah. So that way let's discuss this. Let's talk about it. So with that being said, get comfortable, get cozy. The intro's next. Let's go. All right. So, and once again, welcome back. It's a whole new season. Actually, wait. Oh, we already got a comment. Let's see what we got. What's going on, man? What's going on? It's good to be back. I'm much rather enjoying myself down here versus starting it in Atlanta and everything. So I would 10 times out of 10, I'd rather be here. I'm actually gonna probably go jump in that pool right after I finish this. So yeah. But let's go ahead and get into it. So a couple facts first about Howard, their last game, and again, the old adage still stays the same. You're only as good as your last game. So for Howard, as y'all know, last game against Morgan State, they lost 21-35, lost a lot of production in their secondary, picked to finish fifth in the MEAC preseason. They've given up 375 total yards in each of their last three games of 2024. So 394 against South Carolina State, which I believe that was the game where South Carolina State clinched the MEAC last year. 563 total yards against North Carolina Central in a game that didn't end the best. And then giving up 375 right on the dot to Morgan State in the last three games. So, they not a strong end to a season where they were trying to, repeat as MEAC champs. Oh yeah, we are. We are. I love it. I had me a mojito last night and a marg. But as you can see today, I'm drinking water. Make sure you hydrate today, folks, as well. But yeah, what's going on, Fat Mouth Sports? Good to see you, man. Also, too, as far as Howard goes, they will send a blitzing nickel safety on third down situations. They will show a three-man front with this look. Now, again, their starter today, from what I've heard as of late, on my way down here, oh my gosh. That's dry, man. That is dry. Oh man. I did shots of that on a dare. That's some dry stuff, dude. Be a tequila man. You're in Miami. Come on. But so as we know, Tariq Starks, who's the Florida Atlantic transfer, is, I believe, going to start for them. Now, I can understand why. Deshaun Scroggins, who started for them to end the year, didn't pass over 165 last season in most of the games he played. He only had one game where he went for 300 plus, and that was against Delaware State. Mind you, a bad Delaware State team that in the offseason went and got Deshaun Jackson. Do with that what you may. Now, for FAMU, a couple of facts. As we know, we all watched it Thanksgiving weekend. You won 28-20 over Alabama A&M. Finished 2024 averaging 34.5 points per game. So in those last two games, Classic, Alabama 34.5. Before that, despite even putting up homecoming last year, 21 points per game. And I will say this before I do continue. I look at what Henry Verse was able to do in those last two games, and even speaking about the game last year, I think at some point between those two games, Colsey and Burr sat down together, and Colsey probably told him straightforward, look, these next 2 weeks, that's your job interview. You show me what you can do with this offense in those last 2 weeks, and let it be. If you can't, we'll get somebody else. If you show me what you got, we'll keep you. And he showed what he can do. 34.5, 41 against Bethune, 28 against Alabama A&M, while also depleted at that. Now, he's had a full offseason to work with what he's got, a loaded hand. Let's see what he can do. I'm excited to see what he'll do. Now, at the same time as well, R.J. Johnson named QB1, of course, a new look coaching staff, a lot of changes after the Valley game, as I already said. He finished 78th in rushing last year on offense in the FCS. Again, 537 yards rushing in total in the last two games, 232 against Alabama A&M, 305 against Bethune. Defensively, in that last game, they held Alabama A&M to 75 to end the year. They finished, 75 yards rushing to end the year. Finished 50th last year in total defense. Again, like I've stated, not a good enough number. But I will also say, with the fact of having R.J. Johnson starting, and again, I've said this on this platform. I've said it with Thing Exchange. I said it with ONG Strike Zone. The teams that win championships are the teams that play elite defense, but they're also teams that run the ball exceptionally well. And prime example, because of the fact that R.J. Johnson is getting his first start today at the college level, sat behind a 3-year starter at Toledo, like Halsey said, if there's any situation you kind of link it to, it's an NFL rookie that plays quarterback. Prime example, Jaden Daniels. Now, is that a stretch? Maybe. We'll see. We don't know what we're going to get today. We're excited, but we don't know. What made Jaden Daniels successful last season? The Commanders were third in the NFL behind only Baltimore, who had Derrick Henry, and Philly, who had Saquon, in terms of rushing. That was the number 3 rushing offense in the league last year. Why? You rely on a running game to help a young quarterback, one that's especially new to the speed of the game, to help him adjust. And then you see the results of what Washington got. So I think you need to kind of, I'm not going to say replicate that today, but you have to rely heavily on your 3-headed monster in that backfield with Thad Franklin, Bo Somerset, and Jamal Haley in order to get R.J. Johnson into a flow early. And lean on your offensive line. Again, and last thing before I get into what Colsey said throughout the week. One thing that I noticed driving in here yesterday, and I was thinking it as far as both Howard and Notre Dame, who plays it tomorrow night, goes. The worst thing that could happen for both those teams is if it rains the day before. And sure enough, driving into Miami here down 95, pouring rain. And I'm thinking to myself, ooh, if the sun is out, and the sun is out, and it continues, it's only going to get hotter. It's supposed to creep up into the 90s today. There's supposed to be a chance of rain. It's going to be hot, muggy, and ugly out there. It is. So if I'm FAMU, you got to take the elements into your consideration. The beautiful thing is I think they did most of fall camp on grass, and I think that is going to play at edge today. Because I don't care what you say. You can't replicate heat, humidity, rainstorms. You can't replicate that in DC like what we get here. The beautiful thing is I don't think it lightnings as much here as it does back home for me. Now, what did Coach Colsey have to say when he did his interview and when he met with the 220 Club? So, as far as what he said in his meeting or in his interview on the 25th, he said we've been counting down to the next game. Camp was good. Going through a complete spring and summer, we're further along than last year. Same old stuff he's been saying this entire offseason. As far as RJ Johnson goes, he said, he's a 4-year starter in high school at Westlake, which I didn't know this was. That was actually the same high school Cam Newton went to. We have to tackle well and hit them before they can get going, and I agree. Defensively, we have to be sound. We've studied the last 4 years, we studied the last 4 years last 4 games, my fault, rather than the 2023 Celebration Bowl. So if that's any note, he looked at the same stuff that I looked at, or I looked at the same stuff he did. As far as, seeing what Howard's defense gave up with more experience on the back end that they had last year versus coming into today. He also said we weren't able to transition the way we wanted to in 2024. This year, we've been able to do everything we needed. It was odd not playing in the Orange Blossom Classic last year. And that is a very true statement that I do agree with. I look at this game, and, I see it now as a game that's a complete must to get to. I know some people have varying opinions of this game and everything, and being down here and everything like that. I like it. Personally, I like it. Shoot, give me a free weekend down here. On Labor Day weekend, give me a free weekend. That's all I ask. Now, he also said we didn't do a good job playing fast and physical last year, and we need to improve that this year, which I do think they will. He also stated, I feel we have weapons, but we'll go as far as our O-line and our D-line takes us, which, again, well said. Howard will try to control the clock and manage third and short. They'll try to rattle our first-time starter, which, honestly, if I'm them, that's what I would try to do too. If I'm Howard, I'm going to try to get Eden James going early. And you know what? At some point, I do think Tariq Starks, because of seeing the fact that FAMU's defense gave up some deep shots late in the season last year, I think you're going to see Tariq Starks or Jashawn Scroggins, whoever starts for Howard, try to take a shot on FAMU secondary. Now, how does FAMU secondary play it? That's the question. And can the front seven get home? And if you can get 4 home, or a 4-man front home, or a 3-man front home without blitzing, beautiful. Beautiful. Now, as far as, players to watch goes, so for Howard coming into this game, Jashawn Scroggins, 8 of 16, 1 TD, 1 interception last year. Well, in the last game, my fault. Tariq Starks, of course, FAU transfer. Again, I think he starts. Eden James in his last game against Morgan, 7 carries, 8 yards. So I will say Morgan did a good job of bottling him up when he was in the game. Wide receiver Saquon Osborne, 4 receptions, 85 yards. Linebacker Cam Dyson, 35 total tackles, 2 tackles for loss. Defensive back Caleb Gallup, who's Kenny Gallup Jr.'s brother. Yeah, I believe he's still on roster. 16 total tackles, 9 solo last year. And that's all total last year. Defensive lineman Noah Miles, 35 total tackles, 8 sacks, 1 forced fumble. So, again, they're going to be a heck of a challenge, I think. Same. I know I've heard Colsey say a couple times like he wants the identity to be running the football, but at some point, I do think with a dual threat, to keep people off balance, you're gonna have to pass at some point. But I do think if your first intention is to run the football, you have to establish it, make people respect it. Pull the defense up close. The other thing too that I want to see return this year is I would love to see the return of play action passes. I feel like this offense got away from it in a big way last year. And, the last 2 games of the year, we didn't see it either because I think they kind of hid that wrinkle. But also, I do think they didn't have the personnel to do it late in the season because of injuries and everything else of the sort. But, I'm like you. I do think, like, we don't know what we're going to get with this team. I feel like, you could get a ground and pound team. But at the same time, too, I feel like you could get a team that could turn a game into a track meet. And when I hear what Vincent Jeffries had told the 220 QB Club, when he says, Jalen Rogers can jog a 4.3, I'm like, well, crap. If you're jogging a 4.3, imagine you get a football in your hands. You're probably definitely a 4.1 because it's a different year to you when you're running with a football and someone's chasing you. You can't emulate that when you're running a 40. You can't. So I do think that's when you really see someone's top end speed. Now for FAMU, of course, players to watch: R.J. Johnson, who transferred in from Toledo, Westlake High School, quarterback for 4 straight seasons. I believe it said he had like 9,000 passing yards, like 600 something rushing yards, which is impressive. Thad Franklin, 9 carries, 41 yards, 1 TD. And then against Bethune, of course, you saw what he did. 4 Classic MVP. Bo Somerset, his last game, 8 carries, 74 yards, 1 TD. Jalen Rogers, who I was very high on, missed 2024. But I thought he could have contributed in a major way. But, good kept secret coming into today, of course. So nobody really has film on him from last year. I think he maybe played against Norfolk, and that was it. As far as linebackers go on defense, there's 2 players I'm watching. Justice Cross, who's the Murray State transfer, and then Dalen Ditson, who's the ECU transfer. And then, I'll throw in Nayron too. He's a walk-on, but that's someone else I'm looking forward to seeing have a big game today. Also, now, one other thing for Howard. Now, Larry Scott, he also addressed the media this week. And there were some takeaways that he also gave in his interview. So a couple of things he said was, I think we're going to see the best of our players. We know what James is capable of and what it looks like when he's rolling. When you prepare for a team like FAMU, they're fast and they play hard. A lot of what we see on film is not what we're going to get. They're fast and physical. And that's the brand in that state. He didn't say anything wrong at all. We have to weather the elements and what they want to do. They do have a new DC, which I hope he knows. And I hope he brought extra IVs because it's nice now, but I'm telling you, come 4:00, Florida weather's bipolar. We don't know what's going to happen. It's nice and sunny now, but as soon as I shut this laptop, who knows? All hell might break loose. Franklin and Somerset should have lots of carries today to get off and settled in. It needs to be Yeah. That's what I think too. I think you have to get them his carries. You have to get both of them their carries. I think the lost one that we're not talking about is Jamal Haley in this. I think he's more of like the speed back behind Thad Franklin. Hopefully Somerset did get a little bit faster in the summer with some speed training, because that's what I'm hoping and would have liked to have seen from him. So, but again, we'll see today. I'd also like to see the screen game get going. If you can set up like screens and stuff and just run this offense effectively, it opens up a lot. But at the same time, too, I do feel like, with a new quarterback and one that has not played on the college level, I'm curious to see what he looks like running with the football in his hands. All off season, I've tried to be the one to kind of say, I think Jet looks a little bit like Bo Nix and Justin Herbert at Oregon, and I looking at R.J. Johnson, he kind of reminds me a little bit of Pat White at West Virginia. So I'm hoping I'm right about him looking like Pat White at West Virginia. Let's see. Also, which is interesting too, and if anybody knows about this, I would love to hear their input in the comment section. Someone asked him, like, with the recent happenings in DC, how is he keeping the team focused? And he said, with the recent happenings in DC, we tell our young men to be aware and travel in packs. So I don't know what's going on there. All I know is I did see, and again, I hate to sound like CNN, but I glanced at CNN for a hot second, and I'm seeing troops on the streets in DC and in around DC. I don't know what's going on with that. Again, I'm not seeing it. I don't know what's going on with the climate of that. I get being aware of world events, but at the same time too, I try not to get too ingested in it because, again, to me, it's depressing. Okay. There have been a good amount of law enforcement checkpoints in and around. Oh, okay. Okay. I see. I didn't know that. Okay, that makes sense now. I see why that was asked. Yeah, hopefully they stay safe. I wouldn't. Yeah, you'd hate to see anything happen to any of those guys, or just really anybody in general. In regard to the weather, he said we're potentially ready for any and everything. He did say he said even if we got to play in the parking lot, spot the ball. So all right, okay, all right. So now, as far as a few questions, one other little fact about Howard, or a couple of more little facts. And this came from actually just this last week, rewatching a few games. No third down conversions against NC Central. That's one thing I took away, which I was shocked by. Wide receivers for North Carolina Central. They won all of their one-on-one matchups. North Carolina Central was able to have their way last season running and throwing football. NC Central was way more physical than Howard at the point of attack. And then, of course, they've named their starter Tariq Starks. That's who I expect to see run out with this offense when they take the field. So, yeah. Now, for a few questions, is Eden James going to have to be the bell cow for Howard today? I think so. You're going to have to lean heavily on him unless they have another running back in their backfield. I do think now he's their guy. You're going to have to rely on him heavy. He's a Florida guy. I don't think the elements may phase him that much today, so I think he may be, the last of the Mohicans. He may have to be. The other one, how do they replace all that they lost in the secondary? You've got Caleb Gallup. You've got a couple other guys in that secondary that you're going to have to step up, a couple young guys from last year. We're going to see what happens. They're going to be challenged by a talented wide receiving group that FAMU has. So what a way to get your first test right out the gate and prepare you for the rest of your season. As well, too, is this make or break season for Larry Scott? Truthfully speaking, I'm not rooting for Larry Scott today, but if it is make or break, I really hope outside of this game, and if FAMU and Howard meet again in Atlanta, I do wish Larry Scott the absolute best, because we saw at MEAC Media Days where, you've got Shady McCoy there who can't even decipher between Howard and Hampton, whether he was trying to be funny about it or whether he wasn't. I don't want to see Shady get that job. I do think Larry Scott still deserves that job. He brought Howard a MEAC title just 2 years ago. What has Howard done since? Come on. Let's not make the MEAC an entire conference of ex-NFL players. Let's not do that. I mean, I get it. That's no shade to Mike Vick and Deshaun Jackson, but I wish Larry Scott the best. I'm hoping he has a great season after today. So next week, I wish him nothing but the best. Who steps up as a big-time playmaker on the outside? Truthfully, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Maybe it can be Saquon Osborne. Maybe it's somebody else who we don't know about yet. But someone's got to step up in a big way for Howard on the outside, especially if you're going to try to get Tariq Starks into a flow. Also, too, how do they approach attacking this FAMU defense? Simply put, if I'm Howard, I'm testing them right up the gut right away. Because what I'm going to do is I look at what Norfolk did last season, and in doing so, I'm going to see if FAMU's front seven can tackle. I'm going to see how well do they play in space. Do they get 11 hats to the football? And I'm just going to try to play the power game if I'm Howard. Now, how long does that last in this weather? We'll see. All right. And I guess that's the last one because my last question got answered as I was on my way downstairs here. Let's see. For FAMU, the question's simple. What role would we like to see from special teams today? And I know that's a lost element in this. So personally, I would like to see, just consistency on special teams, making your field goals from long range, covering kickoffs, covering punts. Late in the season, Doc Gamble's special teams unit was not the best. So I would like to personally see, the kickoff return game or kickoff team cover well, the punt team cover well. Coughlin corner on your punts if you're the punter. Not kicking it out of bounds if you're the kicker on kickoffs. That's what I want to see today. If you get lucky and get a block punt, hey, go score it. Or at least, do your best to flip the field. Okay, so the next one is, how do you approach working R.J. Johnson into a groove with this offense? And much like Marcus said in the comments there, simply put, establish your running game. Set up some quick passes, get them into a flow early. And like I said, too, like Washington, top 3 running game last season with a rookie quarterback in Jaden Daniels. A running game is a new quarterback's best friend. If you can get Bad Franklin, Somerset, Haley into a flow early, that opens up a whole lot on this offense for R.J. Johnson. Makes life a lot easier for him. The next one, of course, who asserts themselves as wide receiver 1, or is there going to be a large supporting cast of guys? I think I'd like to see Jalen Rogers, really step up today and assert his dominance as that wide receiver 1. And then, of course, behind him, you got Kenari Wilcher. And honestly, too, a lot of praise has been lauded to, Ahmad Burris, Coach Burris' son. So that's someone else that I'm also looking at to have a big day today. And, again, a lot of people are wondering, this kid's, he's rocking 87 double digits, in this day and age of college football. Yeah, that's another one, too, Goldie Lawrence. Goldie Lawrence is another one. You have weapons. But, back to Ahmad Burris, you look at back, he's a kid that I think, can contribute in a big way. I think when you have a guy that his dad's a professional football player, played in the CFL, you learn things. You learn how to prepare, how to practice, how to watch film. You learn how to run routes, all those things. So I do think that all that's the key contributor to him earning playing time. Yep, that's another one. Yep. Again, yeah, Goldie Lawrence is another key player that I think will have an impact today as well. I'd love to see him get some deep shots today as well. He flashed a lot, especially in the Florida Classic. He came along, late as the season went on. So, I expect him to be in a bigger role today. Where is it also? Let me see where we at. How much more improved will tackling be defensively? Yeah, it can't get any worse than what it was last year. I do think that hopefully there was a greater emphasis placed on tackling in fall camp this year. So I would like to see, 11 hats to the football. Open field tackling, guys not arm tackling and reaching, especially, a team like Howard, they're gonna give the ball to Eden James. So no matter where he goes, he has to pay for it. So it has to be 11 hats to the ball at all times. You can't let him get in space. Today's going to be a special day for him because of the fact that, he's back in Miami. His dad played at the old Orange Bowl down here. And, his dad's a Pro Football Hall of Famer. He carries that same name. So this is a big deal for him today. That is the best kept secret. He flashed to me 2 years ago in the spring game. And I was surprised to not see him playing last year. I mean, for whatever reason here or there, I think I know what it was. But, today, seeing him getting the chance to get in there today and make a play, I'm looking forward to it. But he is the best kept secret. Now, as far as, and before we do wrap up, because it's been about 30 minutes here now, and the sun is starting to kind of rise over and beat down on the back of me. So we're going to go ahead and get into as far as keys to victory goes. So my key to victory number one offensively is as follows: protect the football, execute on offense. You do that, you have a shot. Key to victory number two: tackle and contain, tackle and contain, tackle and contain. This team is going to run the football at you. They're going to try to play the possession game. They're going to try to keep the ball away from you, especially short yard situations. Tackle and contain. Create third down and long situations, and eliminate the element of running. Take Eden James out of the game early. Because as the game goes on, and if he can get stronger, you don't want that. Again, this is an emotional day for him, being back in South Florida. You have to contain him, force Howard to be one-dimensional, and throw it. We don't know what their weapons look like on the offensive end. And you have to wear down their offensive line. And then the last one, I was going to say discipline, but I like this one better because I saw someone else say it. Details, discipline, dominate. From top to bottom, that's every aspect: offense, defense, special teams. Details, discipline, dominate. I think you'll be fine. Let's see what we got here. Where we at? Make Howard beat you through the – yes, exactly. Make them beat you through the air. Because, again, they want to lean on their run game. I wonder if we'll see our newest wide receivers. Yeah, I'm hoping we do see our newest wide receiver. There's a couple of them that I would love to see contribute. I would love to see a rotation of them, honestly. So, I'm actually curious to see who's going to be returning kicks. Because if you remember the narrative 2 years ago when we were down here, the narrative was, FAMU hadn't scored a touchdown in Hard Rock Stadium since 2014, coming into that 2023 game. And then in the first 10 seconds, that was put to bed. Marcus Riley ran it all the way back. And now, again, maybe you get that today. But now the narrative is coming into today is FAMU hasn't scored in the second half in this stadium, which, still you haven't. So that wouldn't be bad. Hey, if they can go, if they're Blazers like that, this I would love to see. I know Jalen Rogers, again, 4-3 guy jogging, so from what we've heard. So, hey, let's make it happen. Offense, control, and run the clock. Yeah. Let's see what we got here. Wilcher, Rogers, and Haley are returning. Good. Yeah. All speed demons, as it should be. All speed demons. If you can set the edge, get blocking, hit the crease, and go. Or as Vince Lombardi would say, get a seal here, and run it up the alley. So with that, I'm going to give my score prediction. Well, first, I'm going to give aces from Wednesday night. If you didn't see the Running Gun podcast, be sure to go back and watch that as well. And I'm going to also give Mr. Sasser's prediction. So Ace said 41-13. which I was like, okay, I'm all in. And then Mr. Sasser, golly, this is what both of them are expecting it to be. Again, if you missed it Wednesday night, go back and watch that. Both said over 40 points. Mr. Sasser said 51-7. I was jaw dropped. I mean, if that happens today, I mean, we got something to talk about as far as, who can be the tops in the SWAC. But for me, I'm going with this. I think FAMU wins 34-10 today. I do think Howard manages to get one. I do think we'll probably get two of these scores in the second half. I do think that narrative will die today as well. And with that, folks, that's all I got. Oh, he did say those three. Okay, Cap. Got you. 27-17. Okay. I'll accept it. I'll take it. I wouldn't even be mad about it. It's the first game. You got guys coming in. You're trying to work your offense. 31-17. Okay. Yeah, I'll take it. I am not mad at it. That would be a good first start. Let's see anybody else. Give it a few seconds. See if anybody else going to put a score prediction in before I get out of here. Because, again, this sun is blazing down. All right. With that being said, folks, thank you so much for joining us this morning. You can go back to watching College Game Day. I know it's Coach Corso's last College Game Day today, so, that's special. I'm actually going to – that's why I chose to do this at 10:30 this morning so I can get back up and see his headgear pick before I do head to the stadium. If you are going to the game today, drive safe, or if you're listening to this, not now, but listening to the rerun of this on YouTube or on Facebook or on X on your way to the stadium, drive safely. There will not be – I should have said this at the beginning, God. There will not be a post-game recap. There will not be. Now, again, we will show the trophy presentation when FAMU wins this game, but there will not be a post-game recap afterwards. If they do a zero quarter, I will do my best to try to, do a little bit of a live stream on Twitter showing that. But I think because this is a MEAC SWAC type matchup, I don't know if FAMU's going to do like a pregame show or a pregame or if the 100 will. So we'll see. So me and Kev are in the same neighborhood, 34-17. I got him getting one less touchdown, but, I can get with that. I can get with that. But, yeah, so, that's all I got, folks. Thank you so much for joining. Again, make sure you join us Wednesday. We'll be back talking about and recapping this one, of course, and then, turning the page to Florida Atlantic. But, again, enjoy the rest of your college football Saturday if you're not in Miami or if you are here. Of course, as all these games come across the bottom ticker, again, don't forget tomorrow night if you're still here and if you want to buy those resale tickets, which are insane, Miami and Notre Dame is 7:30 tomorrow night. But, yeah, that's all I got, folks. Take care, stay safe, stay blessed. Hope to see some of y'all there.